Hey!
One time.
It's 4:20 somewhere, and right now that somewhere is right here. So hello and welcome to the Cannabist Show. My name, producer Vince. His name, Jake Brown.
Thanks, Vince, for belting it out as always, and thanks to everyone tuning in to the Cannabist Show, where we talk all things weed.
It's hashtag all things weed.
And that's the serious marijuana news, along with the fun stuff as well. And if you pop over to thecannabist.co, you can find out what happens when you sell pot on Snapchat.
Not a happy ending, spoiler alert.
You can see the latest on the battle tab. PTSD added to Colorado's list of approved medical marijuana conditions.
Like it appears on the list of so many other MMJ states.
And you can meet the surprising new face of marijuana reform in Wyoming.
Not a whole lot of tie-dye there.
Vince, congrats on an amazing baby shower this weekend, and thank you for having me.
Hey man, thanks for coming, Jake. Appreciate it. I had a great time, celebrating the new life that's going to be ruining mine in just a couple of short weeks here. And I'm getting ready for it, y'all. I'll suddenly disappear for a few weeks, but don't worry, I'll be back. How are you doing, JB?
I am getting ready. I'm going to take a little vacation, going to Mexico. I'm very excited about that. We're going to a little secluded island. No cars, no shoes, just right. But now it is time for the Week in Weed.
I'm still working out what cars and shoes have to do with each other, but I'm in. Let's do the Week in Weed, brother. Let's get in there.
Let's kick it off with the worst prom date ever in a New Hampshire Burger King, where 20-year-old Garrett Norris and 19-year-old Megan Dearborn were arrested. Any guess as to why, Vince?
I'm assuming because he brought his prom date to a Burger King for dinner.
Oh no, it would just be the worst possible prom date I could imagine. Actually, what happened is customers who knew the secret code would order a Nasty Boy with extra crispy fries and receive something special in their bag from the two of those, weed.
Woo!
I, for one, can't wait to see a Nasty Boy OG strain on the shelf at dispensaries near us.
And here at the Cannabist, we've covered a Sonic employee who accidentally dropped their weed into a customer's bag, plus the Washington employees of fast food chain Frugals, who were fired after taking dabs from a local advocate, but never such a sophisticated ring like this.
Now, could this be a sign that there's a demand for drive-through cannabis? If there wasn't a window at Taco Bell, I don't think I could ever actually bring myself to walk inside. The Dollar Cravings menu calls to me. Speaking of being on a budget, Minnesota's Office of Medical Cannabis is requesting over $500,000 to cover expenses related to their highly restrictive medical marijuana program, including inspections and patient database maintenance.
And Jake, that's on top of the $1.4 million that they receive annually to handle the administrative costs. You mentioned inspections, of which 120 or more are carried out yearly of the 8 patient centers and 2 manufacturers in the state. That's a relatively small system compared to Colorado's, but with extensive regulatory oversight.
Yeah, and according to the Minnesota Department of Health's latest program update, they've seen a 321% increase in visits that resulted in a purchase from December of 2015 to 2016. But according to Kyle Potter of the Associated Press, that still hasn't met their projections.
GOP Representative Pat Garofalo wants to help lessen the burden on the manufacturers who are struggling to keep costs down with low demand for their products by allowing them to write off expenses on their Minnesota tax filings, something that is not allowed on the federal level.
And we'll keep you updated as the story develops. In national news, the cannabis industry anxiously awaits President Trump's policy on legal weed, but in the meantime, a group of district attorneys from across the country is formed to help advise the administration.
And that group includes the People's Republic of Boulder's own DA, Stan Garnett, where he figures to be one of the more liberal voices in what he describes as a conservative group. Also included is Tom Raines, Executive Director of the Colorado District Attorney's Council.
And Raines said that there's some common ground on issues like preventing diversion to minors, impaired driving, and prosecuting people dealing drugs outside of the regulated system. At the end of the day, they'll present their findings to the Attorney General, and they could end up shaping the future of cannabis policy in the U.S. Now, let's turn to the cannabis policy and business writer Alicia Wallace with this week's Quick Hit.
There are 2 movements afoot in Colorado to bring PTSD under the umbrella of medical marijuana qualifying conditions. And one of those efforts is making its way through the Colorado General Assembly. A bill to add post-traumatic stress disorder and acute stress disorders to the state medical marijuana list was approved earlier this week by a Senate committee in a 5-0 vote, and then, just days later, cleared the Senate in a 34-1 vote. Senator Irene Aguilar, who co-sponsored the bill and is herself a physician, said, quote, "We're just giving doctors another option for what they might recommend." This bill is the latest in a years-long effort to give PTSD patients access to medical marijuana. Colorado has not added any new conditions since the program launched in 2001. But this matter could also be decided by the courts. The Colorado Court of Appeals has a pending case regarding the State Board of Health's 2015 rejection of a patient petition to add PTSD as a qualifying condition. For The Cannabist, I'm Alicia Wallace with this week's Quick Hit.
Thanks, Alicia. Our first guest today is a Maryland attorney turned CEO of an international cannabis organization that supports women in the industry. Please welcome Leah Heise to the show, everybody. Hi. Thank you so much for coming on.
Please grab a seat on the couch.
So you started off as a member of Women Grow. Now you're the CEO. When did you know you wanted to get more involved in the organization?
I jumped into becoming a business member with the organization as soon as I decided that I wanted to focus my legal practice on cannabis law in the state of Maryland. So I joined in September of 2015. And then I came here last year to the summit in the middle of a snowstorm and met Jane and Jasmine, and 4 months later was asked to be CEO.
That's crazy. Okay, so you started off, you wanted to kind of adapt your practice. What was your specialty in law before you were like, cannabis?
Right. I am a regulatory compliance attorney.
Okay, so this is right up your alley.
Yes, it is right up my alley, but I specialized in commercial fisheries regulations and prosecuting people for violating regulations and killing, harming, and harassing marine mammals. That was my specialty. So pretty far apart from the cannabis space.
But what a natural fit for Maryland. Was it just like a lot of crabbing and things like that?
I was actually a federal prosecutor.
What? Mm-hmm. Okay, and so now you've gone from federal prosecutor to Women Grow, and you're in the middle of the annual leadership summit this week, and that's a massive undertaking. In the last year, what's kind of changed the conversation with women in cannabis?
I think it's a continuing conversation with women in cannabis. We continue to put it out there that we would really like to see women take major leadership roles in the industry. And ultimately, it's a diversity issue across the board. It's not about exclusivity, it's about inclusivity. And what we would like to see is that the companies that hire and staff their organizations reflect the communities that they serve. So through color, through sexual orientation, gender issues, and female, male, just diverse across the board. That's what we'd like to see.
And you keep hearing about pushes for diversity, especially in Maryland, where people are saying that there is a real absence of people of color that are, awarded dispensary licenses there. If you had kind of a platform for this year in terms of inclusion, what are you trying to hit?
For Women Grow generally, or Maryland in particular? Women Grow, I would really like us to see a diversity council. We're working on creating a diversity council so that we can look like our communities. I think it's going to take a coordinated effort amongst NCIA, the Minority Cannabis Business Association, the Cannabis Cultural Association, Women Grow, and other organizations to really come together and prove that we can work together in partnership and collaboration to create inclusivity across the board.
Yeah, and I mean, those are so many organizations, so many large organizations. How do you even start to tackle that from an outreach perspective, even just getting people in the same room at the same time? I don't envy that task.
The people that I've spoken to, Jesky in front of the head of the Minority Cannabis Business Association, Aaron Smith from NCIA, and Kristen Jordan from the Cannabis Cultural Association, everyone is very open to creating a safe space for people to really change the way this industry staffs. And I think that coming together, we will be able to do that. And it starts at the top, and then we need to listen to what the communities are telling us. And they're telling us they want to be involved.
Right. I want to back up just a little bit. For someone who might not be familiar with Women Grow, how large is the organization now? Because I keep seeing these numbers and I'm like, oh my God, this seems like one area that I'm seeing such dynamic growth.
It has experienced dynamic growth. In fact, this company is only 2 years old. So it is a startup. It was started here in June of 2014, and in essentially less than 2.5 years has absolutely exploded to more than 45 cities in 2 countries. We have applications from countries all over the world, from places as strange as South Africa and the Czech Republic to more standard ones that you would expect, Canada, Mexico, Germany. Our intention is to go global this year. We're working on creating infrastructure and programs to set it up, and we're going to take this on the road.
Okay, so global. You're starting to see emerging markets like Germany, for example, just announced that they're going to move forward with a medical program. Is it developing opportunities for women here in the U.S. to move abroad or to work there, or really empowering women in these countries to start shaping the future of cannabis there?
That's an interesting question. I'd never really thought about the fact that we could almost do like a transfer program and help take our members who are already experienced in the cannabis industry and let them help
Have
those
a sister
evolving,
city, if you will.
absolutely, and set up those evolving markets. Women Grow is very effective at helping evolving markets come online. In fact, when I joined in Maryland in September of 2015, I joined Women Grow because it was literally the only organization in my entire state that had anything to do with cannabis. There wasn't an NCIA. There was nowhere that we could meet with each other and talk about how do we discuss the regulations, or how do we apply, or how do we get more connected with businesses on our level, and even if it's an ancillary services company or plant-touching businesses, how do we connect? And Women Grow was there. And in that time, I've watched the Baltimore chapter grow from 10 of us sitting around the table to over 250 people at the last meeting. And it is the platform for emerging businesses in the cannabis industry.
Well, and that kind of success has to be so validating. When you're looking at someone who wants to get involved and say they live in a state where there really isn't any progress, there's no framework for how medical marijuana or recreational marijuana is going to come online there, how do you recommend they get involved?
There's a couple of things they should do. One, I always recommend that you become a member of Women Grow.
Right. Okay.
Of course. And if you don't have a chapter in your area or a market that's open in your area, you absolutely can open one and get the message out there. I also recommend that people really work closely with SSDP, Students for Sensible Drug Policy, MPP. Do your research. Watch what has happened in other states, especially if you are interested in applying for one of the many licenses that are available, depending on how they structure it. Really start to figure out where there were mistakes. Maryland, for example, 3 years. We're 3 years. We don't have medication on the ground. We won't have medication on the ground probably until early fall, and that's if we don't get shut down because of lawsuits for lack of diversity, or if the legislature doesn't yank all of our licenses because it wasn't done properly. So learn from those other mistakes that states have made, that businesses have made, and watch, and then make those recommendations to the legislatures when they're developing their own regulations.
Now, I'm sure you have forgot more about the Maryland marijuana program than I know. What's really been the roadblock there? Why is it stumbling so much to get established?
There were a couple of things. One, Maryland is interesting in that it is not based upon a taxation model. So, and it's not part of the commission itself that manages the regulations, is not part of the government. It's completely apart. It's a private entity. So their monies all came from the applications that went in. So now they spent that money on figuring out the licensing process and getting the licenses done, and now they need more money. So the money thing wasn't really thought out very well, and the budgeting wasn't thought out very well. And Maryland's market is incredibly attractive because it's one of the broadest based systems in the country, in that, one, you don't have to be a Maryland resident to get marijuana in the state of Maryland.
So you have people flooding in from all over.
All over the world. As long as you're being treated by a doctor in the state of Maryland, you can get a recommendation in the state of Maryland and be treated in the state of Maryland with medical marijuana. So it's very attractive from a business standpoint to not. That's a huge market. And we have some of the major hospitals in the world in terms of Johns Hopkins and Children's and NIH. So there's people that are coming from everywhere to be treated. So it's just a huge market. And the commission was not ready for the number of applications we got. They got over 1,500 applications, I think.
Good Lord. And I mean, those fees are, again, covering for them to kind of establish the program. So I mean, you don't really think about what that burden's going to look like, even though it's been established in so many states.
Right. And every state does it a little bit differently. I mean, Washington is certainly much different than the way Denver manages its compliance and the way that they do their regulations. But we need to pay a lot of attention to other states.
There's always lessons to be learned. For somebody who wants to get involved with Women Grow, to circle back, what kind of resources are available to them? And why would somebody say, you know, I want to start my own Women Grow chapter, for example?
Sure. What we found from market leaders in particular, if somebody wanted to start their own chapter, is that this helps set them up as experts in the industry. They'll end up being in speakers bureaus. They start getting a lot of press. They are known as someone who knows how to connect other people in the cannabis industry, and they're taught how to do that.
That's
so
amazing.
it's very attractive to people that want to be known in the industry.
Awesome. Well, Leah, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Hang out on the couch. We're going to have one more guest.
But first, we're going to go to our own garrulous ganja guru, Professor Pat, with this week's entry into the new Cannabist lexicon.
Domeless nail. A relatively new innovation in the cottage industry which has popped up around dabbing. The domeless nail replaces the traditional dome and nail arrangement with a single piece, usually made of titanium, quartz, or ceramic. The entire piece is heated with a torch. The concentrate is dabbed into the channel, then the smoke is inhaled through a hole in the middle. For example, this domeless nail made dabbing so much more convenient. It's not great having to mess with the dome or getting sticky or burning your fingers.
Thanks, Professor P. Our second guest today founded a company that provides professional bud tending services for private events. Join me in welcoming Andrew Mieure. Hey.
What's up, Jake?
Thanks so much for coming on. Give you a little shoulder tap thing. It was great seeing you last week. We were both at an event. I love that you have become a professional bud tender. Now, did you start off with a background in bartending or selling weed?
No, not at all.
Really?
I'd been to a few bars in my day, but I originally started out as a refugee medically.
Okay.
I suffered from some pretty severe anxiety issues, and I moved from Ohio to Colorado.
So is being on television right now the best fun?
Oh, it's great.
Okay, great.
No, you have to challenge yourself to get over things like that.
Right,
So-
anxiety is a perfect one. I deal with anxiety a lot. It's part of the reason I smoke cannabis.
Right, same.
So wait, so you left Ohio?
Left Ohio.
What part?
Northwest.
Okay, so a tough area
Like
for...
real cornfield.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, like probably I grew up in a town of like 800 people.
Oh wow.
So very small.
Right.
So cannabis was a big no-no.
When did
So,
you first find that cannabis worked for you?
I had a doctor tell me because I was on Xanax for my anxiety, and it basically ruined my life. I lost a ton of weight, and I went to the doctor to get medicine for weight gain, and he told me the only thing that they have is Marinol, which is synthetic cannabis.
Right.
And I said, I'm not doing that. So I did more research, and I was really against cannabis at the time. So I looked into it. My friends are like, just try smoking once, see how it is.
Right.
So I smoked. I thought I'd be tripping out and seeing spiders crawling on the wall and stuff. None of that happened. I smoked. I was good, and that was all she wrote. I had to have that medicine from then on out. So I moved to Colorado and was able to get the medicine I needed and became a bud tender in a dispensary that I was frequenting at the time.
So where did you find marijuana in a town of 800 people?
Went to the town of 40,000 people.
I would have said any kitchen, so.
All right, so you were like, I'm going to go to Colorado, and then I'm imagining doing a lot of this research, you're becoming super knowledgeable about cannabis. When did that relationship go from knowing pot to wanting to inform others?
I noticed that in dispensaries, and even the dispensary I was working in, people just didn't really care about the patient experience. And I was taking, 30, 40 minutes with every patient to know exactly what their medical ailments were every single time with every patient, paid close attention and built relationships. And I noticed people weren't doing that. They were just saying, this is our highest THC strain, so have this, that's great. They didn't care about one-to-ones or higher CBD strains or any of the other cannabinoid or terpene profiles, anything that bud tenders should know, they weren't caring about because they were pushing product.
What year was this when you first started bud tending?
Probably about a year and a half ago.
Okay.
That's when I started.
How do you become an authority in this space?
I've trained with quite a few people. I worked with Trichome Institute for a while, and I know Max quite well.
Shout out to Max.
Yeah. Max is great. We love Max.
We love Max.
He's taught me a lot, but just doing a lot of independent research and kind of weeding out the bad from the good, because there's so much information on the internet that is completely wrong. Like I see people online telling people to eat a 200 milligram bar to help them go to sleep, and it's like you
will go to sleep.
You will, but you don't even know that person's tolerance. Like I have a very low tolerance. I'm like a 5 to 10 milligram edibles guy, and it's so different between people. You got to be very careful with those.
Right.
So I see people giving information out freely online like that, and even in dispensaries, and it's just like. Oh.
So what were the resources other than the Cannabist that you found were pretty accurate and that became kind of touchstones for you?
Just lots of books.
Okay.
Mashula, Clint Werner from California, he has a book, just perfect. It's so good, all about how marijuana is medicine. And after you read enough of these, you start weeding out what's good and what's bad information based on how much of it you're seeing, and the authority figures in the industry. You start seeing people that are telling the truth and are doing proper research. But right now it's very hard with the federal government saying no to a lot of this research. So you have to find people you can trust and stick with that.
Absolutely. So when does top shelf bud tending start?
So funny story. The bud tender I was working with said something about, hey, they're having a weed wedding in Oregon. I was like, that's a thing? So I started looking into it. So shout out to whoever had that first weed wedding out in Oregon. They had a bud tender there. So I thought it'd be a really cool idea to kind of just go around to events and do it. And I met with Beck Coop from Irie Weddings and Events, and she's like really big into the scene with the weddings. And
she's doing our flower for the summit.
Yeah, her and Phil Wolf.
Go back.
Wait, like physical flower or like arrangements? Or like a smokable flower? I'm sorry.
For boutonnieres, yep, there'll be smokable flowers, and then she's doing our flowers for the summit.
Oh, I can't wait.
Her and Phil are doing the Cannabis Wedding Expo this year as well in Denver. So I met with her to try to actually work for her. And she encouraged me. She's like, well, why don't you just do your own thing?
Right.
And I didn't really see myself as an entrepreneur or anything like that. And I knew I was good at what I did. I just wanted to share that skill with everybody.
Right.
So I tried working with her, and time went on, and we had talked further, and she just finally pushed me to do it. So my first event was the Cannabis Wedding Expo of last January. And I was talking to Vice News and all these people when my company was brand new. So it was crazy and surreal and fun all at the same time. And then since then, I've gotten more events. And it's just like it sparked me, and I owe a lot of what I do to her really pushing me in that direction.
Right. So I'm throwing a party. I want to get some weed involved. What's the advantage to having a professional bud tender on site?
The advantage would be making sure, first and foremost, everybody's staying safe and responsible.
Okay.
Because you can overconsume cannabis, and it's not fun.
What's the #1 cause of overconsumption in cannabis?
I would say people not knowing their surroundings. Okay. Because a lot of people act differently in social events more so than just smoking at home.
So it's set and setting, and this is more
setting's
of a setting.
Very important, and also knowing yourself and knowing if you can just go take 5 dabs to the face, or if you're just a flower guy, or you got to be very careful on what product you're using, knowing yourself, how it affects you, and relaying that to your bud tender. So having the bud tender there kind of officiates and mediates those experiences to make sure people are being safe and responsible first and foremost. But you also get, with me and my company, you get more of an experience too. I'm going to ask you how your night's going. I'm going to ask you other things and spark up conversation. I'm not just going to hand you a joint and send you on your way. I like that experience between people, and I think that's what a lot of dispensaries are missing as far as bud tenders. And with social use being as new as it is, I think they're going to take a lot of cues from the bar industry and make it more of a place where people can come together and have a good time instead of just handing you a joint and sending you on your way.
Right. I think when I met you at the Mason Jar event, and you were running a little dab station.
Yeah.
Number one, I was impressed because it was super clean. Doing alcohol swabs, making sure that I don't get like cup cough or anything like that goes around. But I loved that I'm not a big dab guy, and you talked me through. Okay, this is what this option is. That's what that one is. I still got way too high, but that's on me. But I want to know, like, have you found kind of some ideal party strains or anything that you're like, this works, that if somebody was going to have a party, just like a solid recommendation?
People, as far as strains go, name is pretty much irrelevant for the most part. I tell people to pay more attention to the terpene profile. And the party strains people love are anything that smells fruity.
Right.
Love fruity, citrusy, a lot of those terpenes that are going to get you more energetic. I would say stay away from the real lethargic,
earthy,
like
rubbery.
Earthy, rubbery, lavender. That stuff's going to calm you down. And it's not great for parties. So a lot of the landrace sativas you got to watch out for, like Durban Poison. That's a good one for getting people energetic, but it can also send anxiety through the roof. So you got to kind of balance it. Yeah.
Oh, Durban.
Yeah.
Do you ever envision doing like a curriculum that you could set up and prepare for people so that they could?
I think there's a lot of people in that space right now. I'm really just focusing on being the best bud tender that I can be and having my employees be the best that they can be at what they do and really capture that experience and make social use be more of an experience that people enjoy and can rely on consistently. I have an SOP in place to make sure that you get a consistent experience every single time, no matter what bud tender you have at my booth. So
if you were to just give like one piece of advice, something that you see bud tenders commonly kind of mess up, what do you think is an area where most bud tenders could stand to improve a little?
Cleanliness.
Cleanliness. Okay.
I see it like, I would recommend using gloves and obviously tongs, things like that to get the bud out of the jar in the first place. But I see people dropping nugs on the floor, picking them up, putting them back in jars.
Where?
Yeah, name names.
I'm not going to go that far, but in my experience, I have seen that. Or people that wear gloves, they'll touch money and then start handling the next patient without switching gloves. Like, those are things that I notice that I know other people are noticing. And that, to me, especially with patients, if you're in a medical field, you can be dealing with compromised immune systems. That's a huge no-no to me.
All right, so clean it up out there, bud tenders. On that note, I want to bring Leah back in because I'm asking everybody what their preferred kind of cannabis consumption is. So is it flower, edibles, or concentrates for you guys?
I prefer edibles or concentrates, and I never smoke it.
Really?
I have something called chronic pancreatitis, and they say that smoking is the #1 cause of pancreatic inflammation.
Oh, so it would be antithetical for you to...
Right.
And then edibles kind of just whenever, or...
Before I go to sleep in particular.
Yeah? Do you have like a certain milligram that you like to hit?
5 milligrams.
5?
Very low.
I'm with you, guy. I am like, 5 is enough where sometimes I wake up and I'm still a little weird, but it's like so much better than a hangover. What about you, Andrew?
I microdose edibles
at
either 2.5 to 5 milligrams.
I feel like microdosing is this big conversation
it's cool,
now
man.
that everybody is talking about.
I love it. I have a really low tolerance anyway, and with anxiety, you have to really watch THC levels. So for me, I use vaporizers, herbalizer, and packs mainly, and I only vaporize. I smoke sometimes, occasionally, but the vaporizers really preserve the taste and the smells.
Yeah, you're getting a lot.
I really
more
prefer
of
that. I feel like they bring a much more balanced experience because when I smoke, it goes right to my head. So when I vaporize, I feel it more balanced. But that could just be me. But I think you're getting more of the cannabinoid profile when you're vaporizing as opposed to smoking.
Okay, I mean, I think that's true too. I mean, you're getting less of that kind of just organic material in there. What's like a microdosing regimen look like in your world?
For me, wake up in the morning and take 2.5 milligrams of a 1-to-1 chocolate. Like Incredibles has a really good CBD chocolate.
Okay.
The cherry one, it's really good. I try that right in the morning, and then to maintain throughout the day, just little puffs of like Harlequin or a really nice 1-to-1. I'm a big 1-to-1 guy. And then maybe at night have some like Holy Grail at night that's super stony on the body to help me sleep, and then that's when I'll smoke a normal amount or vaporize a normal amount to help me pass out.
I love that 1-to-1's becoming a thing. I just tried H2, which is a Harlequin phenotype that Good Chem has out, and it's a 2-to-1.
Try that.
And I was really enjoying just being able to kind of sit back and smoke an entire joint like I used to without feeling like, oh god, I can take one hit and put it out. Where do you kind of see the future of these CBD products? Because it seems like the market keeps pushing big THC, big THC. When I talk to growers, everybody's just trying to get into the 30s, 35%. Do you see that, especially in more of like a medical market like Maryland, becoming more of a thing? And how are those conversations happening?
I think microdosing is absolutely becoming a thing, and I think in the female world in particular, we have a tendency to prefer lower doses. So it's not about the highest level of THC. We don't want what packs the biggest punch. We want what gives us a certain level of relaxation, but still ability to function and take care of our kids and go to work and that type of thing. So I think that's going to continue to happen as we grow. I know I just got a dispensary license in Maryland. And
congrats, by the way.
Thank you. And we will very much be focusing on patient instruction and consultation. It's so incredibly important in determining what their profiles are. But that lower level area is going to be a big part of our focus.
Absolutely.
I think that the THC, high THC, has its place.
Okay.
It's not for me. I would go crazy if I had a 30+% strain, just because that's how my anxiety is. And I know myself. But for some people, that's the only thing that takes their pain away. And it's very good against cancer. THC, like CBD's gotten a lot of attention for that, but THC is very important, especially in a medical regimen. Like, I haven't cut out THC. And I think that the just only CBD movement is good for some people, but not great for everybody. So I think it has its place, and I think those lower doses and the one-to-ones have their place for certain people. But that's when it comes down to the bud tenders really knowing their patients and their clientele properly, and really going that extra mile to get that and recommend the proper product.
I do think what you're doing is going to be the wave of the future in terms of, especially once the federal government gets in and starts mandating, we are really going to be about patient education, and it's so incredibly important, both from a recreational and from a medical side. It's very important.
Could either of you envision a world where flower just ceases to exist? Because you both said edibles and concentrates, where so it'll still be there.
I think it's got that middle ground to where people, it's approachable enough for people to just light up a bowl, and it's approachable enough to put in your vaporizer and take along. Concentrates are good, but they can be too much for some people. And I think flower gives you a much more balanced experience. You can control it a little bit easier. Edibles are very erratic. So I think
people are used to smoking. They like that.
There's a familiarity.
Right, with the controlling of the dose and the things like that. They like that. I think newer individuals, especially if you're talking at a much higher age, more of the baby boomer type thing that are coming to it from a medical aspect, they would prefer a pill, or to make it not look like it's cannabis at all. So
That's
like Altus Labs makes these great pills. Just a THC pill, 5 milligram. They do a sativa and an indica. Great. I love them personally. But that's one of the ways that I see more of a baby boomer type thing. They're comfortable with creams, they're comfortable with patches, they're comfortable with pills, not as comfortable with smoking.
Fair enough. Okay, you know what? That's going to take us to our pot quiz. It's where we pit our guests against each other in a battle to see who knows what grows. All right, let's get right into it. We'll start with question number 1 for Leah. Leah, are you ready? You look ready.
Oh, yeah, I'm ready.
All right, question number 1. A 4-star football recruit was cited for marijuana possession in Ohio State. He was visiting Ohio State University. What did he tweet and then later delete? We just talked that you are not an active Twitter user. This is not... Well, this is how it's going to go.
All right. Twitter.
All right. What did he tweet and then later deleted? A, oops, my bad. B, legalize it with a fire emoji. C, anyone know a good lawyer? Or D, OSU players do so much drugs.
I'm going to go with D, even though I wish he had said B.
That is correct. Twitter pro. I don't know why you would get, like, he's cited for possession, and then the first thing he did. OSU players do so much drugs.
That's good to know.
OSU is
Yeah.
also the school that had football players complaining about having to go to class on Twitter a couple years ago also.
Well, I mean, drugs will interfere with your
Now
class
we know why
schedule.
they're
Let's
so
make
good.
sure we have our priorities straight. All right, we're going to go to Andrew with question number 2. What popular brewed beverage is a California company adding weed to? Just came out this week. Is it A, tea, B, coffee, C, kombucha, or D, beer?
There's so many
Popular
options
brewed
because I know
beverage.
there's a lot of infused beverages from all
Yeah.
those.
Infuse all the beverages
there's
is what I
infused
say,
beer, There's
but-
infused vodka. I'm going to go with the kombucha.
I'm sorry, that is incorrect.
No?
Leah with a chance to steal. Is it A, tea, B, coffee, or D, beer?
I keep thinking a pot of coffee, but
That is correct. Oh, 2 straight.
My next choice was going to be wrong anyway. So.
So they're starting the cold brew
brew.
coffee movement with cannabis infused. I know a lot of people that really enjoy a cup of coffee and a nice sativa in the morning. Either of you ever dabble in coffee and weed?
Not a coffee guy. I've been
I am a
caffeine
coffee
free for like
girl.
4 years.
What?
Yeah, 100%
I
caffeine
for
free.
you.
started drinking coffee 4 years ago at age 30. I'm a weirdo.
Yeah.
What about you, Leah?
oh, I'm a coffee girl for
Yeah.
sure. So I could see it.
A little coffee, a little cannabis?
And same with the tea. I've seen the tea bags with
Yeah.
with it in it, and that's good too.
Yeah, we've had Stillwater on pretty recently. They do a really fun kind of microdose
Some awesome
option.
stuff. 2.5 milligrams.
Yeah.
I used some the other night, so they're good.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
It's good.
All right, we'll go back to Leah. Leah, you have a chance to wrap it up early. So, California police raided a dispensary for the second time. This was a repeat visit. Police made headlines last time they were there when they did what? A, danced the Macarena. B, did the mannequin challenge. C, ate some snacks that were thought to contain weed. Or D, pretend sword fought with nugs.
I'm going with C.
That is correct. I mean, Andrew, we don't want you to leave empty-handed.
I got destroyed.
Andrew, you did good too.
That's
You-
all right.
you answered
That's
the
all right.
Very
trophy.
good.
We have one more for you. Because listen, let's get you on the board. What traditionally Republican Western state's proposal for allowing universities to study medical marijuana passed its first committee meeting this week? Is it A, Utah, or B, Idaho?
I was going to say Utah.
That is correct! You redeemed yourself, sir. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of the Cannabist Show. Thanks again to my guests, Leah Heise of Women Grow and Andrew Mieure of Top Shelf Budtending. And thanks to everyone out there who subscribed, rated, and reviewed last week. I do read every review, despite my therapist's advice, so please leave one. For producer Vince and the entire crew of the Cannabist Show, I'm Jake Brown, and we'll see you next week. Hey, thank you guys so much.
That was really good.
To lose, I choose to win. I'm all in, I'm calling any posse you'll be raising at the end. I say it again, ain't afraid to get in. I be going for the jackpot with ace in my hand, I'm raw.